Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Loan Officer Playbook, the podcast where we talk about real insights and strategies in loan origination. Today, I'm joined with Kristin. Kristin has a background in mortgage strategy, and she's also the co founder of FirstHome IQ, a nonprofit helping Gen Z and millennial homebuyers get educated about the home buying process. Welcome, Kristin.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Amazing. So, Kristen, you and I met through one of our industry powerhouses, Dave. And from the moment we chatted, it was just a natural fit about like how our ideas just sort of like meshed together, how you're talking about educating the first time home buyer. And at the time, I had just um, got to a place in life where a lot of my friends were buying homes and they were asking me, and I'm like, I don't know, like you should, you don't have any other place to like get this information. So I feel like the mission that you're working on is hugely, hugely important to society. Like, how did you land on working on this mission?
Yeah, so I actually started out my career as a social worker and I was doing a lot of education with like homeless youth and underserved communities and my dad had been in the mortgage business, so I had that education growing up and I just saw how much it changed the trajectory of people's lives when I shared some really basic financial literacy education. So I started doing more of that and that's when I became really passionate about that. And then I spent like the rest of my career really focused on helping lenders reach those markets, reach younger millennials and underserved communities, and through education and through kind of compassionate outreach, and so again, just saw real impact. But I had been talking to Dave Savage for a long time about how we could come together as an industry to really solve for this financial literacy crisis by creating and supporting educators in our communities. So there was a moment where it was like I was ready for that next thing, and it felt like a time to come together to do it.
Yeah. I like how you describe it as a crisis. It really is a literacy crisis.
Yeah, and it has been forever. I just feel like the more that, home prices rise and our financial situations becoming more and more complex, it's becoming more of a true crisis.
Yeah. What needs to change? I mean, if we say, well, now everyone's educated about the, home buying process, like, would that be the goal that you're going for? Like, what's the vision that you're trying to achieve with First Home IQ?
I actually think for me personally, it's more about um, making sure everyone has the education and knowledge to be able to access homeownership, and to understand the value of homeownership. If they then decide that is not I don't want the pressure or the maintenance or things like that, that's totally fine, But I feel like there's so many people, many friends of mine, as I'm sure you've talked to friends as well, that are like, they just feel like they've been boxed out or that they don't have the options, when in reality they there are affordable options to achieve homeownership, or they could create a path to homeownership that, yeah, maybe will take a couple of years or longer. But I think people just are feeling like they're not even going to think about it. It's like there's a real avoidance happening there.
Yeah. I think people just generally feel like Gen Zs and millennials generally feel like they've been left out of almost everything. And the running meme that I see on Instagram is so there's this sort of like meme where it has like Gen Xers or boomers talking about selling their homes for like 2 million that they bought for $60,000 in the 60s. I see that meme so many times. Um,
Yeah, I want everyone to see that meme because
yeah,
it is so true. I mean, I do
yeah,
feel like this, there's always this conversation of like, if look what I did, look what homeownership has done for me. And it's like, that was a long time ago in a very different world. And I think we can't talk about homeownership in that same way. Yeah, there's value in homeownership and building wealth, and there's opportunity there, but we need to talk about it in terms of like house hacking and, affordability strategies, and maybe, even like, shared equity models and things like that. But this is not we're not in that same era, you know?
Um, I don't think most of our audience, well, some of them will know, but you mentioned the term house hacking. What do you mean by house hacking?
House hacking is a very popular, I think, term in the kind of younger group when you think about investing in home ownership. But that's where you might get into a home and share you maybe rent out your rooms, and then you're able to pay for your mortgage and then move into another home and kind of build investment properties over time. I also hear about it a lot. That was kind of like the original house hacking term, but I also, and I don't know if you do as well, but hear about it more in terms of like even affordability strategies. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, what's my way to hack into getting into home ownership?
All right. I've also seen a lot of fractional ownership things pop up.
Yeah, I think it's such an interesting area. And actually, in our 2025 Next Gen Homebuyer Report, we saw that that was with Gen Z, one of the I think that was like the number one, not fractional specifically, but that general idea was kind of coming up as the number one way that they would think about buying a home more affordably. But I do think again, there's so many opportunities. Even for me, I live in a TIC. And that is like a different, they're not available in most cities, but I think it's interesting to think about like how can we make homeownership more affordable, look at different strategies and that kind of expand our products and things that are going to fit for the audience today.
Yeah. The mindset shift of when you think about uh, owning a home as it feels like you're gaining independence. But fractional ownership, it's like co-owning a home, and this is like new stuff. And how should lenders think about meeting that demographic when like the core message of owning a home, I would imagine like maybe 90% of all lenders are thinking around it as, hey, you're independent, like you just you just got married or you have a new job and then you want to like move in and just settle down. But home ownership is like very different from Gen Z. Like how should lenders think about changing their core message to reach a younger audience?
That's exactly it. Like I do think we need to change the core message, and there's a large group of people that do think about homeownership as, settling down, having a family. But I think we could reach a whole lot more people if we were paying attention to other ways of thinking about homeownership. Single women are the second largest cohort of home buyers today, double that of single men. That is a different. That's not a, full family. Like two income household looking at buying a home together, and Gen Z and others that are younger thinking about home ownership, I think, as a way of building wealth, but they're not doing it and they're not waiting until they're married. And I think there's a lot of other people that would look at home ownership sooner if they understood the strategies available to them. So even if you were doing workshops around house hacking or affordability strategies or looking at fractional ownership, co-ownership types of models, and you are doing presentations on that, and even if you didn't get anyone that actually fit, like that chose to approach it that way, I think you would reach a lot more people because they were able to open their minds about what homeownership looks like for them. Like we need to stop looking at the white picket fence and start looking at the different models of what homeownership looks like. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. I didn't know single women were the you said the largest demographic,
Second largest
second largest
demographic.
demographic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. We did a women's homebuyer report, next gen women's homebuyer report a couple years ago. I want to do another one really bad because gender always comes up as like we see a lot of statistical significance with gender in all of our reports, and I'm not always able to like spend enough time really looking at that, but it's like there's actual differences in and real barriers to home ownership and financial decisions between men and women. I think a lot of that just comes down to how we were socialized. But
Mhm.
women tend to have a lot more anxiety, a lot less confidence, all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's really interesting that then And I think some of it is that there's home is safety for women, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of like, stability that you find in home ownership. But yeah, I think like looking at those things, it does require then you shift your messaging towards understanding that like safety message and
Yeah.
that building confidence message and understanding some of the anxiety and lower risk tolerance and things like that.
Yeah. I think independent, like single women are a lot more sort of like independent and go-getting, if you will, than single men. Because I grew up with a single mom, and my mom was just a powerhouse. Like when she acquired land, she like did her own. She was her own contractor. She was her own builder. Like she paid up front for the property. Like all of those things, she did everything. And I was like, you know. 12, 13, seeing her doing all of that stuff. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. So I
So
could see, yeah, I could see a world where, if we start to look at these demographics beyond, like you mentioned, like the white picket fence, a whole new possibility of options would open up for the lending industry.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's really exciting, and I think it's important that we pay attention to not just the different models, but like you were bringing up, the different messaging around that.
Yeah. Um, I want to talk a little bit about education strategies. Um, Everyone learns differently. Some people are visual learners, some people are auditory learners. What are some of the ways that you've seen people learn best when they are, say, a millennial or Gen Z home buyer?
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is actually an area that I'm digging into deeper, and it's something I've spent a lot of my time thinking about. But because we, like you said, we do learn so differently, and I have pretty severe ADHD, and I have found that with my particular, the way my brain works, the way that I have a lot of anxiety around money, I cannot sit down and read a book or even take a course about financial literacy. It is just, I feel like my insides are crawling out of me. And even when I was creating the First Home IQ curriculum, the online courses, I went through them myself, and I actually recorded myself going through some of it. And I'm like, I can never show that, I don't think. Like, I'm like sweating and,
Yeah.
like going
Yeah.
through it so hard. And I've just realized for me, that is not the way I'm going to learn and grow. I
Yeah.
need to have someone who's supporting me. So I found a financial advisor who is like, really cares about like looks at, works closely with me. And I will go to a workshop absolutely and be able to listen to someone, take notes because I'm feeling guided through that process. So this is where I think people like, and younger people do have less of an attention span. They need, shorter form content. I feel like it's important, more important now than ever, that you understand the variety of ways that people learn about finances and homeownership. We know that, people like 40% of Gen Z go to social media to learn about homeownership. And YouTube is still the number one place people go to. So you got to have content on YouTube, on social media. But for people like me, you also need to be out in the community and be someone that's like, doing presentations and being really more of a personal a figure in people's lives. And I think that's where partnerships with schools and nonprofits and, leadership groups, I think there's just a lot of like professional organizations that you could partner with where you would capture people that make a good living that just have, avoidance around money and of maybe lower attention span and just need that, that guidance. So that's why at First Home IQ, we really focus on a lot of different ways of learning. We do have the online courses and we do have the, support people with creating the content, but we also focus on events. And, we think that it's important to look at the variety of ways that people learn.
Yeah, you're so spot on about the short attention span and also the um, proliferation of information on the internet right now. And in addition to just overwhelming the person with so much information in the beginning, if you're thinking about someone who's just starting out, uh, they probably don't know what's adjustable rate mortgage, and then telling them about the math of it. Maybe you could like tell them a story or some sort of way to just tell that story better. And I feel like storytelling is going to be a huge part of learning about the home buying process. And you just outlined a whole lot of ways that people could learn. It seems like just so much work for FirstHome IQ to do alone, and I applaud your mission, but it does seem like a lot. Does it feel like a lot?
Yes, but also we're not doing it alone because the idea is that we are empowering educators, loan officers, realtors, teachers, to bring this kind of information into their communities and educate in the way that makes sense for them. So I think, our goal is to just empower them as much as possible. And that's how we're going to be able to really make a dent in the financial literacy crisis. But I feel like there's, yeah, like you said, there's just so much opportunity to reach people if we are paying attention to how they are receiving that information.
Yeah. You mentioned YouTube is the number one content platform. Is that what you would recommend for a loan officer that wants to start educating home buyers? Is YouTube the first platform you'd recommend them start with?
I think YouTube is so crucial. We actually just did a mastermind with Shay, who does a lot of does the YouTube stuff for Kelly Zitlow and other people who have been really successful on YouTube. And I think it's such an important area because like I said, it's where people go, but it is very different from the other platforms. So I think you can take then like that's a place where you can send people like, oh, if you want more information, go to my YouTube channel. If you want to, when you first meet someone, go check out these, few videos I have on YouTube. And so it's a great starting place. But I also think you need to pair it with an Instagram or a TikTok if you feel comfortable with that, depending on what your strategy is. Again, without biting off too much that you can chew more than you can chew.
Right. I could see that. Do you think AI plays a role in all of this in a way where it's not only about the length of the content or the format of the content, but if you will, like the pattern of the content?
I am so curious what you would say to that question. I feel like this is like, yeah. So, I mean, I just went to the Forward conference, and there was conversation around this. But first of all, I'm curious what you mean by pattern of the content.
I would say, I would give an example. So I watch Family Guy, and there is a channel, it's not channel, like an account on Instagram that teaches quantum physics in the style of Family Guy. So it's like Peter from Family Guy, like giving out like physics formulas and
Well, I need to find this. You need to send this.
so something like that, or it's like some sort of basketball player like LeBron James, just like teaching you history or something. Because LeBron James like famously likes to say he reads a lot, and then people are like, well, you really don't read that much. But then there's a channel just using his sort of like likeness and persona, exact voice, just teaching history. And it just sticks with me a little bit. So that when I say pattern of the content, that's like something that I mean.
I mean, this is something that I think we should explore with First Home IQ. Because I feel like people, I think the making things more fun to learn,
Yeah.
that's where AI can really help us there. I just learned that there was an AI tool that would actually, you can record yourself for a while and then it will like create your own, self to be able to, you just give it scripts and then you're talking without recording that, which is kind of terrifying, but I think there's opportunity there, So um, I'm curious what your
Yeah.
thoughts are around that.
I think we if we say going like one step below from the whole like likeness thing scares me a little bit. Like using like cloning yourself.
Yeah.
Just because I could see where it could go when it comes to, you know, like it's sort of like your DNA. If 23andMe shuts down, which they sort of like kind of did, and then they have your DNA, they could potentially create a clone of you at some point if the technology sort of like gets there. So I'm seeing it it's like, okay, some sort of like tech company has your digital DNA and they could create a clone of you, but what I think there's a lot of opportunity for is, you know, Dora the Explorer. You could make a whole series about home ownership in like an hour that just channels that exact pattern of like some sort of like persona or digital character, that it doesn't matter like which company gets the DNA of like Dora the Explorer, like something like that. And I feel like if these sort of like companies could sort of license their content, like their likeness, and like Disney, they could license, Mickey Mouse to FirstHome IQ, where, someone could learn about, home ownership through Mickey or something like that. I think that's where like I would personally think more
Okay, well, we need to work on this. So I
about.
but yeah, I think this is because I would like again, I talked about how anxious I get around money, and when we
Sure.
look at someone talking about, stuff on video, I feel like don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
skip ahead. And but if it's like a cute little character, then maybe I'd listen.
Yeah. Quick, I think so. Like, I imagine like a series of like short, bite-sized stories of a cute little character on a platform. You remember Quibi, the short story? It was like this thing that's 2021. It was supposed to be a replacement of Netflix, but just for short stories. Um, and then they started and then they shut down. But short stories are actually taking off in Korea and Japan. Like people can be on the train and then in like 5 minutes you can watch like a soap opera, like Netflix style, really well produced, on the train, and then get a lot of insights from that. Like one of my favorite actors, David Oyelowo, he's done like a few short stories, short films, like 15 minutes long, and those are actually quite good. Like the attention span is just like shortening and shortening. That's, yeah.
I actually wrote this down at Forward that I wanted to create a series because we have these, like, I think really great educational videos that are 3 to 5 minutes long, but they are talking head, like, let me tell you about down payment, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like if we could create stories that are, people talking about, like, we're watching a story take place, people would learn and watch them more. And, but I also thought, when am I going to have time to do that? So yeah, we can do it faster.
We can certainly do it faster with AI. This Google's tool VO3, they do a lot of characters. So like Google, they just launched this. You can get 2 years off of if you do like a student membership through VO3, and then the clips are like 8 minutes long, and then you just give it a prompt, and it spits out the video. And I don't know who I saw. It was was it the one of the cross country mortgage people, like he did like a gorilla or chimpanzee sort of like announcing something, but it was done entirely through VO3. I don't know
Oh,
who it was
really?
though.
Was it Sean Herrera?
I
I
think
just saw
so.
a video that
Oh,
was
yeah, I think
through.
that's Sean. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
cool. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I when I saw it, I knew exactly what tool he is. I'm like, this is definitely VO3. It's Sean Herrera.
Okay,
Yeah,
this is so good. Oh, I'm excited.
yeah. Um, so moving beyond, like, let's say, um, first time home buyer and ownership and home ownership, I see a lot of changes coming to the lending industry, especially on the process side of things. I think the process at which loans are closed is going to change a lot in the next like 3 to 5 years. And as a mortgage strategist, you work with a lot of lenders. How are you helping them prepare for the next boom of process changes, if you will.
Well, I've worked with lenders primarily on helping them reach the next generation and helping them reach underserved communities. And so the more that they're able to streamline their process, the more that they're able to focus on the personalization and the like going out into their communities, being an educator. So to me, it's just about like using the adopting the tools and really spending time. What I see, an issue with is adopting tools and not actually going through the full adoption process because things are moving so quickly. So it's very easy to like take something and kind of like half-ass it or something. And so the more that we can get that, like really pay attention to that part of it, the more that people, loan officers in particular, are going to be freed up to be that human in the process. So I'm really excited about that, and I think there just needs to be a really careful approach to making sure that they're staying on top of that because of how quickly things are moving.
Yeah. You bring up a very important point, which is like not embracing the tools fully. I think that's both a function of like the tools not being holistic yet, but also like trust. We sell AI software, and then one of the things that it does is it does automatic like document processing. So we have a loan officer uses our platform, but there's a time when the tool actually calculated really really well, like automatically, like 5 minutes once the loan came in. But they reached out to us and was like, hey, they wanted us to like explain how it got to the answer, and so we added like a way where it gave the formula and all the income calculation stuff. Like if it's like social security income, like it has to gross up 25. And then if this is liquid income or non-liquid income, like you can catch all those things. But also like it has to do with trust. But one of the reasons I think what's not being used, it's like the tools have just not so like come together yet. It doesn't feel like Microsoft 365 for mortgage. Like you have your Excel, you have your Word, you have your PowerPoints, like you can have a whole suite. It's just not like there
Yeah.
yet.
No,
Yeah.
that's so true. And I think the best tools are integrating with each other, but then that takes time and resources to do that integration. And that's where I do think it's important to know what needs to be in the suite of things so that you can piece them together and hopefully in the future they come together better. But I totally agree. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. And even on the consumer finance side, we talk about that all the time, that there's like all these disparate, like tools and you have to piece them together yourself. That's getting a lot better, but I feel like we're approaching that, but it's not there
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, yeah. I think agents have a huge chance of being the thing that uses the tools. I kind of think like we're beyond sort of like integrating, honestly, because like
Oh, really?
integration's like a slippery slope. Because like everyone uses so many different things. Like people use a million different CRMs, and
Yeah.
have to integrate all these CRMs. And why not just have an agent that can use the CRMs like a human would?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, I don't know the mortgage industry too. They most people don't want to integrate because they want to like keep the data within. It's all about who has the leads, who has the data, like who can reach out to the clients. There are a few people who have gone with like an integration first approach. I think that is great. It's probably not where we're going to be in the next 5, 10 years. I feel like it's more going to be like agents using the tools, and well, maybe they can shut down the agents, but we'll see. This is just something that I think about all the time. Like, think about here.
Wait, are you referring to AI agents?
Yeah,
Okay,
agents.
okay.
Yeah,
I was like, why are the real estate agent? Okay. Yeah, that totally
yeah,
makes sense. That's so interesting because we're just
yeah.
at this point of like kind of leapfrogging technology in a lot of ways. It's not inching along anymore. It's like really progressing in such a different way with the presence of agents and, AI.
Yeah. I definitely do see AI agents doing a lot of the sort of like going in and clicking buttons with if in a platform that doesn't have any integration so far. Um, Perplexity, like they launched an agentic browser, like OpenAI is coming out with their own agentic browser like a week or two from now.
What does that
Um,
mean?
like a browser that can browse the internet for you. Uh,
Okay.
Perplexity launched this thing called Comets recently. It's like you can just tell it what you need to do, and it would reference the different tabs and open up your different apps and then do it, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
I think
This
that's
is
where we're going.
wild. Like how do I stay up with this? I
I don't
just
even.
last night was on Perplexity using research and labs for the first time, and I was like,
Yeah,
this is blowing my mind. But I
yeah,
had just started getting into Gemini. You know, it's like there's there's a whole world that is developing so quickly.
yeah. I don't even. It's so hard to stay up. Stay up. That's a good question, though. Also think a lot of things are happening in the mortgage industry. I feel the same for myself too. I saw the Forward conference. I'm like, oh, this is an amazing conference. I mean, I have heard about it, but like, how do you stay connected to the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I do think you follow. It's interesting. It's kind of like I don't know, it's who you follow, you know,
Yeah.
and so making sure you're following people that are great leaders in the spaces that you want to have leadership from. So I think, following you for AI things and making sure people are like then following Neil for stuff that's related to being in the video influencing kind of space. I think you choose who to follow for different things. So
Yeah. I like it's like going to a store and then on aisle 9 there's like this on aisle 9, 11 aisle 11 there's like this, aisle 13 there's that. You just
yeah,
have to walk through the entire store to get an inventory of everything on there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I kind of think of even like, if you're a loan officer in your community, you need to be that person that people follow for financial homeownership related things because there's just so much noise. And, the more you show up as the leader in that space, you create, kind of calm and like a bright spot in what feels like a dark, overwhelming space. And that's, what we're all trying to do is find those people that are gonna kind of guide us through that store or be able to say, like, here's the best stuff in this area,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. Other than Mortgage Coach, I'm name dropping some tools, and then some other like fintech learning tools, I really don't think there's anyone who has scaled mortgage education really, really well. Um, the social media education is like a little fragmented. I see some people make circle communities, but those is like the people that you invite. Like um, do you have any advice for someone who wants to scale mortgage education? Um, for instance, and I'm guessing you might have answered this question previously before, but it's not around like what tools to use, but just generally like the strategy to make sure that my information is reaching the right people, and it's not like if I post something on Instagram, it would go viral, but then everyone would see it. It might not be impactful as like reaching out to the specific demographic of people that I really wanted to reach to.
Yeah, this is exactly the thing. I think people need to really focus on their community, their network, and so looking at partnering with people, like I heard this awesome like region had a lot of success with partnering with a local nurse and doing some content because they had a lot of great then that network in that specific community, like location. People were getting a lot of that information. And so I think looking at things like that, and that's, more virtual social media type stuff, but then looking at the young professional organizations or the, groups that you can partner with live and create content from and tag people in, like you're going to start reaching people that are the people you want to be be in front of. And I know people have said this a lot, but being the mayor of your town, I do think that's really true around like how do you show up as a leader in this space in your
Yeah.
location rather than trying to just make something go viral.
I could totally see a loan officer running to be mayor just so they
Yeah.
could organize the events and have access to the mind share of the entire community.
That'd be great for their business, I'm sure.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. But that's a great point, though. A lot of people are just focusing on like online content, but it could be very fractional. Like everyone can see it. But in person, you get to curate the experience, honestly, like in person being local.
Yeah, totally. I think
Yeah.
you need a mix, and it depends on who you are, but I think, partnering with people that already have the leadership and trust, because another thing I haven't mentioned, but distrust is such a huge issue with first-time home buyers and millennials and Gen Z. That's something that has dropped continually every year, is just like in my research, is just this declining trust in loan officers, but also realtors and other industries across the board. And so, whenever you partner with people that are already trusted, you're going to generate that trust as well.
Yeah. Amazing, amazing points. Kristen, thank you so much for coming on. How can our audience reach out to you?
Thank you so much for having me. And people can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can also email me, Kristin at FirstHomeIQ.com. But yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, in all the places. So
Amazing. This has
thank you.
been another episode of the Loan Officer Playbook Podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you.